8. Mitchell Worth. The word I hate the most in the English language has to be appropriate. As in, it's not appropriate for me to behave the way I do in my classes. I used to be able to keep it appropriate back in 7th grade, but lately a lot of the old habits have been popping up again. Exactly what old habits are you referring to? My mother asks the principal. The worst part of parent meetings is being talked about like I'm not right there in the room. Dr. Burgoyne consults some notes on her desk. Oh, foot tapping, nervous distraction, constantly leaving to use the bathroom. Do you know how many germs there are in the school? I put in. So sue me for having good hygiene. Well, then there's the problem of your locker. The door is scratched and dented, and the custodians decided to find out why. The door won't close properly because the locker is jammed full of... I can't even describe it. Where do you find it all? Oh, Mitch, Mom shoots me an exasperated look. Look, if I throw out that stuff that I need later, I'll get in trouble, I defend myself. And the math department has a special complaint, the principal continues. My mom knows exactly where this is heading. 13 is a perfectly normal number, she tells me, and everyone is allowed to use it. Well, they're right. To use it stops when it can get me killed, I retort. Bad enough that I have to be 13 for a whole year. Dr. Burgoyne sighs. Well, we felt he had these behaviors under better control, but lately there's been some backsliding. Have there been any major changes in Mitchell's life recently? Mom nods. Well, last year he was working with a therapist, but there's been a change in my employment situation, my insurance situation, and we had to quit that. It drives me crazy that she can make it sound so natural, a change in my employment situation. That's how adults describe losing a great job and replacing it with 3 lousy jobs that don't even have health insurance. That's why Mom is so tired every night that a good day means that she can make it through dinner without falling asleep in her plate. And why I can't go to Dr. Breckenridge anymore. Not that I'd even want to see such a Class A jerk. I understand, the principal says, and she probably sympathizes. Everyone in Canaan knows at least a couple people who got laid off by Delacraft Auto Parts. Most of them are having the same kind of issues that we are. But for the time being, Mitchell needs to find a way to make his behavior less disruptive. In other words, this is my problem. Principals always pretend that they want to help, but when you actually try to get them to do it, you might as well talk to the wall. Dr. Burgoyne shakes hands with both of us as we leave the office. That costs me 5 good minutes of hand washing in the boys' room. Well, that went pretty well, don't you think? Mom asks when I come out. I almost explode in her face. Pretty much everything about my life stinks, except for the fact that I have friends and we've got an amazing fort we can go to anytime we want. And pretty much everything about this school stinks, except for the fact that my friends go here too. But can I be with them? No, because they're all in better classes than I am. I'm about to go off on Mom when I notice her stooped shoulders and the dark shadows under her eyes. Plus, tonight is her late shift at the assisted living community, so she's still got a long work day ahead. The last thing she needs is to get yelled at by me. So I manage. Thanks for trying, Mom. She tells me not to wait up tonight and reminds me that there's leftover pizza in the fridge. I already know that I'm not going to be eating it. I've got my eye on a tin of 40-year-old spaghetti and meatballs instead. By the time I make it to the woods, the worry ramps up to real panic. They forced me to stay after school to make up the work that I missed during that meeting with the principal, so I'm going to be the last guy to get to the fort today. What if somebody already ate my spaghetti and meatballs? I sprint along the trail, too stressed to tap tree trunks. That's not in the book, sorry. Why didn't I write my name on the can? But that might only draw people's attention to it. When we set up the fort rules, we never worked out a system of dibs on the food tins. How could we be so careless? But even with a system, that wouldn't cover Ricky, who isn't really our friend. He could eat somebody else's spaghetti and meatballs just to tick a guy off. Now, the problem with obsessive compulsive disorder is that once you get obsessed, you can't get it out of your head. And the harder you try not to think about something, the more you're thinking about it. I'm so anxious that I count 26 paces from the termite stump instead of 25 or 27. And by the time I get to the fort, I'm lucky not to tumble down the ladder and crack my skull. Now, I turn out to be unlucky, though, because I missed the Empire Strikes Back. Everybody's already left, except for CJ. Yeah, the others took off about 20 minutes ago, he tells me. I hung out to grab some dinner. Not spaghetti and meatballs? I gasp. Nah, I got a taste for pork and beans, he replies. But I should probably get going. I picked up a rock in my gigantathon. What's a gigantathon? You know, those giant roller blades that are almost like skis, he explains. Yeah, there's a rock jam between the wheels, and they're useless if I can't dig it out. Out of all of us, CJ always has the coolest stuff. He's not really rich or anything, but his stepdad Marcus loves buying him presents. Must be nice. I try not to get jealous, but sometimes it's hard, money being tight with Mom and me. And if I let myself get jealous, I'm going to end up hating CJ, which would be terrible because he's my friend. And then again, I could never be jealous of anything called gigantathons, which sound kind of dangerous. No wonder CJ is a mass of scabs and bruises all the time. CJ steps into the kitchen, opens a drawer, and comes out with a large black dinner fork. Well, this might do the trick. I frown. To dig out the stone, couldn't you use a screwdriver or something like that? The expression on his face freezes. I don't use Marcus's tools. Well, he totally let you, I reason. I don't use anything of his. I can tell that the subject is closed. Maybe CJ doesn't want to hit up his stepdad for too many favors because then the presents might stop coming. If I ever find somebody who gives me stuff, maybe I'll understand. There's no point in hanging out at the fort by myself, not even for spaghetti and meatballs. So when CJ leaves, I go with him. We do a good job of camouflaging the trap door with branches. One upside of OCD, you don't do anything halfway. We make our way to CJ's house, and he gets the gigantathons out of the garage. They're not quite as long as skis, but they really do look like them. And sure enough, a round stone is jammed in the wheels under the left boot. Wait a minute, I say warily. You got 6 wheels on each skate plus that rock? That makes 13 circles. He holds up the fork that we brought from the fort. But we're getting number 13 out, remember? Well, do it quick. Just then, the door to the house opens and Marcus comes into the garage. Oh, hi, guys. What's up? We're leaving, CJ says in a monotone without glancing in his stepfather's direction. I thought we were going to get the rock out of your rollerblades, I tell him in surprise. This gets Marcus's attention. I'll help you. We're good. CJ takes the left skate and leads me out of the garage. I say goodbye to Marcus and follow CJ to the park at the end of the block. I'm dying to know why CJ would be mean to a guy who buys him stuff, but CJ obviously doesn't want to talk about it. We sit down on the bench at the corner of the playground and CJ goes to work with a fork. That rock must be really jammed in there because it isn't budging. The scraping of the fork against the stone creates a chalk on blackboard sound that could make any OCD guy want to jump out of his own skin. An older lady has to duck as the rock pops out of the wheels and whizzes across the path. "What are you doing?" she yells. CJ jumps up, dropping the fork, which skitters at her feet. "Oh, sorry about that." She bends down and picks it up. "Why would you use a beautiful piece of cutlery like this to fix a skate?" Beautiful, I repeat. And that's when I get a good look at the fork in her hands. The handle is still gross, but the tines, which have been scraping against the rock, are shiny silver. What happened to the fork? CJ wonders. You chipped off some of the tarnish, the lady explains. This piece is solid silver. Feel how heavy it is. She hands it back to CJ. Take this home to your mother. It's probably worth hundreds. Of dollars? I blurt. Of course dollars. All it needs is a little silver polish. And with that, she walks off, leaving us standing there, open-mouthed. CJ looks at me wide-eyed. We've got a whole drawer of this stuff back at the fort. Hope she's not wrong, I moan. Have you heard any news stories about a mean old lady going around getting people's hopes up by telling them they're rich when they're not? Well, there must be some way to figure out how much it's worth, CJ muses. Let's call a meeting tomorrow and see what the other guys say. Now that's how I know CJ's mind doesn't work like mine. You don't tell a guy like me that he might be rich and then leave it till tomorrow. The rest of the day, I don't go 5 seconds without thinking about that silver fork. Not when we're carefully replacing it in the kitchen drawer of the fort. Not when I'm eating my 40-year-old meat, spaghetti, and meatballs. Not even later that night when I'm watering my plants, making sure each leaf and stem glistens with droplets in the moonlight.